All right. Pentactric, I think. A hat-trick but 5. Pentatric. Words, yeah, complicated.
A quick thank you to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Duck Machine, Try Again 95, Astray the Dreamer, Mesic, Budic Joel, German Chemist, Casper Arnholtz, and Chaos to Must. Thank you very much.
Anyways, on to the story. The Care and Feeding of Humans, Part 23. Humans suffer from more addictions than any other species in the aggregate. This is not a surprise when you consider how many chemicals they create in their own bodies that have addictive properties. These addictions play a large part in why humans are so willing to go on expeditions to death worlds and potential death worlds in the first place. The thrill, or the high they get from being in dangerous situations, is how they get their bodies to produce those addictive chemicals and hormones. This also means that when an expedition is over, humans are prone to withdrawal. They become cranky and irritable. Humans may, during this period, self-medicate with alcohol. If you notice this happening to your human, it is best to distract them with exercise. Dviuk Review of Ontological Species Studies, The Care and Feeding of Humans, Post-Expedition Blues. Published by Glass and Steel, The Care and Feeding of Humans, Translation Engine 3.14159. Tiv returned a short time later with scan results in her hand.
I've got good news, and I've got bad news. Which do you want first?
What the hell kind of question is that? Zoe demanded. You're a doctor.
Tiv looked confused. The book says that humans like this game. I thought it would help us with this tense moment.
Zoe growled. Just forget the book. Tell us.
Nerf, you're probably fine, Tiv said.
Probably. That's a word you like to hear from your doctor, Alan muttered. Tiv ignored him and continued.
The spores are in your system, but because your system is so alien to the spores, we don't expect they'll be able to do anything. Except for the spores and slightly elevated levels of analgesic neurochemicals. You seem fine. The neurochemicals are probably just relief from being back on board the ship, as it is present in all of you. Zoe hugged Nerf, who said, I told you I was fine. However, Tiv said, you'll need to stay in isolation until the spores are processed out of your system. Everyone else, except for the aforementioned analgesic neurochemicals, your scans are fine and you can leave now. We also see no signs of spores in,
Tiv looked down at her notes.
Fubsy, is it? She pronounced the unusual name slowly. But Fubsy should stay in quarantine as well, while we determine if the xenocarnivore is carrying anything untoward. That's adorable xenocarnivore to you, Dareth muttered under his breath, and Nate laughed, which he turned into choking and coughing. Tiv looked up from her notes. Excuse me?
What if we want to stay? Alan asked.
Tiv looked confused. I don't understand.
What if we want to stay with Nerf and keep her company? Alan persisted.
Tiv looked at Alan somewhat frostily. I don't need 5 non-patients taking up room and resources in my medi-chamber.
Tiv pulled the clipboard closer. It's time to leave. She pointed at the chamber that acted as an airlock between the medi-chamber and the rest of the ship. See ya, Nerf, Alan said, a little awkwardly. If you need anything, you just let us know, okay?
Terra walked up to her and ruffled her feathers with his hand. You get some rest. We'll come back and visit.
Griff asked Tiv.
Are you going to install the rejuvenation pod in here for her?
Tiv looked at Griff.
My staff are quite aware of the medical needs of your Nesta. She will have the appropriate care facilities until she is free of spores.
Griff gave Nerf a smile.
The class accommodations for you.
Nate walked up to Nerf. You take care of yourself, you hear? And you need anything, you don't hesitate to let us know, like Alan said, okay? Zoe came up to Nerf and hugged her close. I was so afraid that we were going to lose you, Nerf, she whispered in Nerf's ear. Don't do that again. Nerf hugged her back and whispered, I won't, I promise. Nerf and Fubsy watched the team leave the medi-chamber. Each one glanced back and gave her a wave goodbye. Even after all this time with humans, Nerf was still excited to perform the hand-waving gesture,
and did so enthusiastically with both hands. When they were gone, she turned to Bubsy. I guess it's just you and me now, she said. The kitten walked up to her, tail straight in the air, and placed her front paws as high as she could on Narif's legs. Oops, Narif said. Tiv, I think Bubsy is hungry. Would you ask Tarif to prepare some food for her? He knows what she likes. Tiv sniffed. My team is capable of handling the needs of a xenocarnivore. Well, can someone get us food now? We haven't eaten for a few hours, and Bubsy can get quite demanding when she's hungry. Tiv tapped on her combat and then looked up to Narif. Food will be here shortly. In Narif's somewhat limited experience with medical facilities, when the medical team said shortly, that usually meant hours. She picked up the gauze toy that made for Bubsy and tried to distract her. It wasn't hours before the food appeared, but it felt like it. Narif fed Bubsy first and then started eating her own food. She made a face. It wasn't nearly as good as Tarif's food, but she was hungry enough that it didn't matter too much. Bubsy seemed to be of the same opinion. She turned up her nose at the food at first, but then gave up and ate when she realized that she didn't want anything that Narif was eating. There was literally nothing to do in the medichamber, so Narif started reviewing the storm data again, hoping to find some pattern, temperature, wind, humidity, anything. Around dinner time, Bubsy started wailing pitifully. A speaker clicked on, and Tiv's voice came over the sound system. Narif, what is the objectionable sound? Are you or the xenocarnivore injured in some way? No, Narif said. I think Bubsy is hungry or lonely. She's used to having a selection of people for playing and distraction. She's looking a little paler too. Can we get her some food right away? The only answer was a click from the speaker. A food droid did appear shortly though. Narif set Bubsy's food out, only to have Bubsy walk up to it, sniff it, and then turn around and scrape the floor like she was trying to cover the food with dirt. It can't be that bad, Narif murmured, and then took a bite of her own food. Classic medical facilities food, perfectly balanced nutrition, and not one bit of taste. Narif ate hers, but Bubsy refused. She lay on the floor and didn't look sick, exactly, though Narif wasn't sure if she'd know what it looked like if Bubsy were sick. However, she definitely didn't seem well, and Narif was sure her fur was paler now, with dark stripes becoming more visible against the lighter-colored fur. Tiv, Narif called out, but there was no response. Narif picked up a compad and sent a message to her nester. Bubsy doesn't like the medical facility food, and I agree that it is not up to your standards. Could you smuggle us in some food? The droid showed up a few minutes later, and as Narif had opened it, she could smell the difference. Bubsy came running over to the droid, energy restored by the smell of Tarif's food. When Narif took the food out, Bubsy made a questioning noise and tried to climb into the droid. Tarif's not in there, Narif said, but he sent you dinner. Bubsy complained about the insult, but evidently wasn't too upset to eat. In with the plates of food was a note from Tarif, promising that the team would come and visit her during the visiting hours tomorrow. After eating, Bubsy's behavior seemed normal, but her coloring was still light. Eventually, the lights in the medichamber dimmed to about 50%, which meant that it was now time to sleep. Narif lay down with a sigh and Bubsy curled up next to her, a small ball of warmth in the cool medichamber. Next morning, Bubsy was definitely lighter, and Narif waited anxiously for visiting hours. Breakfast was delivered via 2 droids. The first one was medically approved food, and the second droid had Tarif's delicious food. Once Tarif's food was removed from the droid, it was filled back up with the rejected medical food, same as the night before. Food didn't seem to improve Bubsy's coloring. As soon as the door to the observation portion of the medichamber slid open, Bubsy ran to the wall to put her paws on the glass. Tarif, Quirf, Zoe, Nate, and Alan walked in, though it seemed that perhaps Nate and Zoe had been having some words. It's so good to see you, Nate said. We've been bored out of our minds. What's going on? Alan rolled his eyes. Nothing to worry about. Everyone is just crabby with no job to do or prepare for. Something's wrong with Bubsy too, Narif said. What's the matter with Bubsy? Zoe asked. Maybe she needs more food. She doesn't seem hungry, but she's a growing girl and her fur has been getting paler again, Narif said. Has it? Zoe looked at Fubsy through the glass and tapped to draw Fubsy's attention. She looks the same from here. Derek looked down at Fubsy, whose fur was back to the charcoal color that she'd been thinking of as normal. Not 10 minutes ago, it was lighter, and you could see stripes. Fubsy rubbed her head against the glass where Zoe's fingers were and sat down and washed herself. Whatever may have been going on, Fubsy was unconcerned. End of chapter.
And that, my friends, concludes